We're in the middle of what's nearly a week off for Edmonton, but the late November trade rumors are still swirling. David Jiříček might be dealt by the time you're actually watching this video, but there's some suggestion that the Oilers should target an even bigger fish on the market. I'll tell you about the swirling rumors, but before I do, please support the channel by hitting that subscribe button. Multiple reports are suggesting that current New York Rangers captain Jacob Trouba should be a trade target for the Edmonton Oilers, and listen, okay, I know that for the last few years, Jacob Trouba and his flailing elbows have been maligned by many fans and people, frankly, around the NHL, but I want to put that aside because no matter what you think about him, this is a really, really good defenseman. And as far as actual fit goes, this is something close to a dream for Edmonton. Edmonton's top six on defense instantly gets so much better if you add Trouba in here, because you've got your top pair who really at this point you've got no choice but to have faith in, because it's not going to change. But looking at the bottom four, you add Trouba and the addition strengthens it as a whole, because you put Darnell Nurse on a second pair with Trouba, and in my opinion, that completes a very, very legitimate top four. This suddenly becomes a pair of guys that other teams aren't going to want to play against whatsoever. So this is a pair that can match up pretty well against anyone, and realistically, I think Brett Kulak has played well enough this year to anchor a third pair. So now you get to play the best of whoever's playing the best at the time of Troy Stecher, Travis Dermott, or Ty Emberson on the right side of that pair with Kulak, and that's suddenly a top six of defense that doesn't have any glaring weaknesses. That's three very good pairs, and that's huge. And to understand why Trouba makes sense as a target, you've got to move over and look at the other team in this situation, which are the New York Rangers. And the Rangers have a lot of money to dish out over the next couple of years. They just got the Alexis Lafreniere extension done, which kicks in next year. But among those the Rangers still need to sign are Igor Shesterkin, Ryan Lindgren, and K'Andre Miller. Shesterkin's exorbitant contract demands have been out in the public for everybody to see, and Jacob Trouba carries an $8 million cap hit into next season. If they can retain a top four of Lindgren, Adam Fox, Miller, and Braden Schneider, I think the Rangers are going to feel like Trouba's money is at least the most expendable big contract they have. And if Edmonton are willing or even able, of course, to eat the entirety of Trouba's contract, I think the price of acquisition could be pretty favorable for Edmonton. And now, crucially, the Oilers are going to need to get the money to work. And right now, thanks to some injury-related cap relief, Edmonton are less than $3 million from being able to fit the Trouba deal in. And in other words, that's one Jeff Skinner. And it doesn't even need to be Skinner going back to the Rangers. I can imagine they'd probably want the $3 million going somewhere else, given the way their team is currently structured. But you look around at other teams that could either want to or be enticed to take Jeff Skinner. Both Colorado and the New York Islanders have had their forward groups absolutely ravaged with injuries. But even if the interest isn't there in those three teams, I think you could move a mid-round pick to get a team like Chicago to take Skinner in return for everybody's favorite future consideration. So I know best case scenario, at least I wouldn't want to dump Skinner off the team, but he struggled, and it's hard to point to more expendable money, especially when you factor in the fact that they just added Kasperi Kapanen in the bottom six, so I think it's looked solid in 2 games so far. So in conclusion, if you're Edmonton and Trouba's available, I'm really into taking a shot at this. Don't forget that when the Matthias Ekholm trade was made, there were many who had similar gripes with that deal that you're hearing against the concept even of acquiring Trouba. But for me, the Rangers captain is going to check 3 boxes here. The player's quality is absolutely there. It addresses what I think is Edmonton's biggest problem, which is the defense, and the cost of acquisition could potentially be favorable to the Oilers, depending on how motivated the New York Rangers are to move the contract, given the other money they need to prepare to distribute really now, right? These contracts, those 3 I mentioned, Lindgren, Miller, and Shesterkin, are all expiring at the end of this season. Again, by the time you're watching this, David Jiříček is probably dealt, so rather than give a deep dive into trade semantics, I'll give my 2 cents on this guy, because there are some guys around hockey that I might be the president of their fan club. You know what? I think David Jiříček is one of those guys, because I think this is a special player. And if Edmonton do end up making what results in the successful pitch and acquire Jiříček from Columbus. It's hard to imagine a situation in which this isn't a good thing for the Oilers, because Bouchard and Jiříček would lock up the right side of the Oilers defense well into the foreseeable future. Not to mention, it gives you two potentially elite power play quarterbacks for as long as those two players are on the team. The fit in Columbus for Jiříček hasn't been there. Not to mention, the Jackets are an organization whose prospects have had developmental curves be somewhat all over the place. So when Jiříček's confident and he's in the right position, he's got the toolkit to be dominant in pretty much all areas of the ice. I kind of think Moritz Seider in Detroit with maybe a better shot than Seider, and that's what his ceiling is to me. Is he going to be that? I don't know, probably not, but at 20 years old, my vote is you absolutely take that swing. So again, Jiříček might be a Nashville Predator, a Calgary Flame, St. Louis Blue, whatever by now, but if he's an Oiler, I'm going to be fired up, and I'm saying that you should be too if you're an Oilers fan. Finally, I know we've still got some time before the next Oilers game, but we do now know that both Zach Hyman and Victor Arvidsson won't play in the first two of the 3-game road trip, which are games in Utah and Colorado. And listen, I know everybody might be a little bit tired of hearing about how good Vasily Podkolzin played over the weekend, because I've certainly heard a lot about it. That was a very nice goal he scored against the New York Rangers. Again, listen, I very, very much think that Podkolzin's ceiling in the NHL is still that of a top 6 forward. If you look around the league, there are always guys who break out in different times. I don't know if you remember the 2015 draft. Dylan Strome was picked 3rd overall. I think this year is the first year we're actually seeing Dylan Strome fulfill his draft expectations. His draft was 9 years ago. Vasily Podkolzin has been a promising player for a long time. He's got a pretty promising toolkit. So it's not inconceivable to hope, to expect, and even to be optimistic about the fact that Podkolzin's positive play could definitely be a trend upward and definitely be a trend of things to come. He's a very, very effective winger. He's a smart hockey player, and I absolutely think that he could very, very much benefit from the space opening up in the Oilers' top 6. So as much as, yes, Hyman and Arvidsson are going to absolutely hurt the team with their absences, don't discount the fact that Vasily Podkolzin's play is trending up, and having him be one of the wingers in the top 6 isn't necessarily a bad thing for the Edmonton Oilers. The next Oilers home game is when they host the Columbus Blue Jackets on December 5th, and there'll be a little something extra going on that night, because the Oilers and the NHL are going to honor Connor McDavid for hitting his 1,000th career point. According to the Oilers press release, quote, joined by his family, McDavid will be presented with a golden stick and commemorative Tiffany crystal for his accomplishment, and fellow Oilers players will present their captain with a gift from his teammates. The ceremony will also include a special video tribute to mark the historic accomplishment. That'll be something special to watch. Obviously, it is something that we're going to look forward to, because Edmonton is obviously on the break this week, and then they hit the road, so that's something special for the next home game, which, of course, is on December 5th. That's all for me today, though. Thank you so much for watching.